So, how we support our children's relationship with the other parent is also really, really important. Like that has a huge impact on our kids. And so that's the other thing. Like, are we regarding when we're planning vacations, when we're planning events, are we regarding the other parent? Are we mentioning that to our kids? Are we saying, hey, are we asking, hey, do you already have plans with mom or dad?
Hi, and welcome to Beyond Empty Nest. I'm your host, Jody Silverman, speaker, mentor, and Chief Dare Officer at Moms Who Dare. Every Thursday, I'll share stories of midlife transformation, happiness tips, and dare you to see the opportunities waiting for you so that you can make this next chapter even better than the last. If you're ready to dare, I'm ready to dare with you. Let's get into today's episode. Divorce can be tough, but the holidays don't have to be. In this episode, we're tackling the tricky world of co-parenting during holiday celebrations. From creating joyful memories for your kids to navigating schedules and emotions, we're sharing practical tips to make the holidays peaceful and maybe even pleasant for everyone involved. So let's dive in and unwrap the gift of harmony this season and for all holidays to come, because we have, back by popular demand, Christina McGhee, because Christina will be showing up on the show in a couple months as well. So Christina, I'm so happy you're here and that we're doing this episode. This was a very last minute thing for you
Yeah.
and I to hop on. We had a great conversation about
Mm-hmm.
divorce and parenting with respect to adult children. And this naturally came out of it. This is a really important conversation to have to support anybody listening right now that is co-parenting and finding it hard during the holidays.
Yeah, and it's especially important for adult children because, as you and I talked about in the last interview, right, a lot of times the needs of adult children kind of just fall off parents' radar,
Yeah.
right? They're emotionally overwhelmed as they go through the divorce process. And we have this tendency to think that because our children are adults, because developmentally they're capable of taking in a lot of information and dealing with a lot of situations, that they can just kind of handle it, that they're going to be okay, that this really isn't going to have an impact on them. And, before we got on camera, one of the things we talked about is that the holidays are an emotional time,
Yeah.
right? And it tends to ramp up that intensity. And a lot of times, our grown children are navigating a lot of behind the scenes stressors that they are not talking to us about, because kids learn very quickly to kind of filter what they say because they don't want to have to deal with the emotional backlash.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And we talked about this on the episode that will be forthcoming. Um, underestimating
Mm-hmm.
how your divorce is impacting your adult children. I'm doing the quotes for those of you not watching and listening. You know, just because your children are in the adult phase of life doesn't make it okay to think that they're okay. Because divorce is a powerful and disruptive life transition, regardless of your age of your children. It just disrupts the whole family dynamic of what we're
Yeah.
used to and we know to be true. So I love this. And it doesn't matter what the holidays, whether it's the winter holidays or whether it's a Mother's Day or a Father's Day, a birthday. Birthdays
Mm-hmm.
are celebrations, whatever the celebration might be. I guess my question to you, Christina, is like, what are some of the common challenges that divorced parents face?
Well, I think one of the first ones you've already hit on, and that is underestimating your value and the impact of your actions in your adult children's lives, right? Because parents, and I have had parents have said this to me before, who I am just holding out, Christina, till my kids turn 18, and then I am done. I don't have to deal with this other parent anymore. I can just kind of take them out of my lives. They're just not going to be someone I have to connect with or have any conversation with. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the truth is that when you share parenting responsibilities with another adult, whether you were married or not, whether your kids are 2 or 22, right? Parenting is a lifetime gig. You
Yes.
will always be connected to your children's other parent
Yes.
as long as you're still breathing, right? Because there will still be so many ways that your children will need you. You will be the only parent your children will ever have for the rest of their lives. And as they move into adulthood, there's going to be a lot of life events where they're going to want both of you to be a part of: weddings, graduations, buying a
Grandchildren.
grandchildren, buying a first house, right?
Yeah.
Challenges that they may face, and children still need us to be guides, to be involved, to be sources of support for them. And
Mhm.
often that need of support flips when divorce happens
Yes.
later in life, and parents kind of move into that role of really depending and leaning on their children for support instead of the other way around. And then when you talk about the holidays, adult children get saddled with lots of responsibilities, like figuring out how they're going to meet everybody else's time frames and calendars for celebrating the holidays. And I have had adult children tell me, I dread the holidays. I would just like to bypass them because I feel like I'm turning myself inside out to make sure everybody's happy. And so that kind of folds into another really big challenge, and that is when parents really focus more on keeping things fair than flexible for their kids.
Oh, so wait, you're saying, okay, so they're focusing on fair but not flexible, is what you're saying.
Right. Yes.
Ah, so the
Yes.
first is you need to just get rid of that myth and mindset that because your kids are adults, it's not going to affect them and
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to worry about them anymore. Get rid of that. That's
Right.
not true. You might not be a traditional family anymore, but you are parents and you created this family unit and your kids they love you both and they need both their parents. The second is instead of fairness, go for flexibility.
Yes, because a lot of times parents really want to kind of, especially when it comes to time, right? How time is spent. Unless, I mean, the holidays, the holiday season, whatever holiday you're celebrating, right? We have these kind of traditions that have been a part of our family. And sometimes parents get really connected to the date on the calendar, right? And
Yes.
they want to put their stake in the ground and say, well, if you're going to spend time with your mom, then it's only fair that I get my time, right? We want to put our stake in the ground for how time is allocated and spent and that it's even. And when parents, and this is really for parents with children of any age, right? When we're treating time with our kids like a commodity that has to be fairly and evenly divided, it creates a lot of anxiety for our kids because what happens is they internalize that. And so they're constantly trying to balance and keep things fair.
It's interesting because this also applies everything we're talking about. Yes, we're talking specifically for divorce, but this applies when your adult children now bring a significant other into the picture. Like my daughter's engaged,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually we're going to have to share her with the other family
Yeah.
and flexibility versus equitability. That's what I'm hearing. Like, for example, and you remind me of something, and that is true, and it is important. And we're fixated that it has to be celebrated on this day. And if your father got this
Mm-hmm.
day, or if their other family got this day last year, I get this day this year.
Yep.
Instead of, I had somebody actually say to me, she recognized that her adult sons all had important women in their lives and they were going different places on Thanksgiving. She said, I just might decide to move our Thanksgiving celebration to Saturday.
Wonderful.
That's what you're talking about. That's the
Yeah.
flexibility that, yes, it might fall on a Thursday, but why can't you still have a meaningful Thanksgiving holiday when if you want everyone to be around, if you want everyone to be included, then be flexible with how your holidays look now.
Mm-hmm.
Same with
Well,
the, yeah.
it's important to remember that memories matter more than the date on the calendar. Like we get
Yes. Right.
really fixated on, and the truth is, and I give parents this example with young children, but it's for all of us really, right? When you think about the memories that have mattered most to you, you know, those standout moments that you had, is the first thought you have, oh, I remember on December 25th at 6:05 p.m., we were all gathered around the Christmas tree and we had this great, magical, meaningful moment. No, that's not what you're thinking. You just think about the time when you were all gathered together. You think about baking cookies in the kitchen. You think about the time when you had that nice long walk in the park and you got one-on-one time with your kids. And if I were to test you and say, okay, what day, what time did that happen? Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's the memory that
Yeah.
really makes the lasting impression. And we forget the power of that and those moments with our kids because we get more focused on, well, this day is really important and it has to be now. It has to be on this particular day because that's what everybody else is doing. And I think it makes such a difference and an impression on your kids when you are willing to be flexible and you say to them, you know what matters most to me is that we just get to have time together and the when is not as important as the how.
I like that. I like that. The memories matter more than the date on the calendar because really at the end of the day, it's about sitting around the Christmas tree or having your Passover Seder or that
Yeah.
Mother's Day, whatever it might be for you. I love this. I do love, although I will tell you Mother's Day is for mothers.
Yeah.
Just saying Father's Day is for fathers. So don't dig your heels in and plan vacations where your children can't be with the right parent at the right time. All right, Christina. So I have a scenario for you. I have a
Mm-hmm.
scenario. I ran this by you before when we spoke at another episode, but I really want it in this episode. So the scenario is a holiday's coming up. And let's say it's me. I have a good relationship with my ex. I'm not divorced, but let's just say I have a good relationship with my ex-husband. We're communicative, and something comes up about this holiday that's coming up. And he mentions that he's already spoken to our adult children and he wants to take them away. And it's coinciding with this holiday. I feel blindsided. And my reaction is, it would have been nice for you to have run it by me before asking them, just so I knew a heads up. And I'm not really thinking in my mind, like this scenario is not about asking permission, but saying, hey, I'm going on a vacation. I want to take the girls. It's going to hit at this time. It's going to coincide with this holiday. Just wanted to give you a heads up about it. His reaction is, well, they're adults. It's up to the girls to tell you, not me.
Yep. I hear this all the time. And it happens with very young children to adult children, right? Children get put in the role of being the messenger or the communicator. And and it especially happens when a parent might think that the other parent might have a reaction or might not want to hear what they have to say. And so they're just like, I'll just leave it to the kids, right? Which is putting your children in a really difficult position. Because if the parent does have a reaction or the information doesn't land with them, and it doesn't need to be any kind of big information, it could be something pretty straightforward, but they just have a reaction to it, who gets stuck dealing with it?
The kids.
Your
The kids.
kids, right?
Yeah, not
Right.
fair.
And so a lot of parents are kind of struggling like, look, we're not together anymore. What do I share? What do I not share? And I encourage parents to really reflect on a very important question. And that question is, if you were still in a relationship with each other, if you were still married, if you were still partners, is this information that you would expect your children to share with the other parent, or is it information you would share with the other parent?
And that's the mic drop right there. Yes. Don't let it's not the kid, don't make your kids the messenger. That's really the short is no. Don't make it, put on your big girl and big boy pants and do the right thing. All right.
Right, whether they're 2 or 22. And a
Right.
lot of that has to do with we really need to be thinking at the outset, like how we are going to redefine our relationship as parents and
Mhm.
what that's going to look like moving forward. How are we going to share information with each other? How are we going to handle the holidays? so that kids don't feel caught up in like having to divide their time evenly between us. Um,
Yeah.
how do we keep them from being messengers? How are we going to introduce new partners? The future needs of our children. I mean, that's all really important stuff to be talking about, even though your kids don't fall under the purview of, a parenting plan or the divorce process anymore.
No, fair enough. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, it should never be the responsibility of your children to keep the other parent informed. Like if you think about it, here's good food for thought. And I tell parents to ask themselves this question when it comes to information sharing. Like, because parents really struggle. What should I share? What should I not share? If you were still in a relationship with this other parent, would this be something you'd expect the children to inform the other parent of? Because even though, right, the marriage ends, right, again, your relationship as parents continue. Just because your relationship has changed, your children's needs have not. And your children need you to communicate with one another, to continue your relationship. You redefine it, it's a different type of relationship. You move from being partners to always parents. But how we redefine that relationship is really, really critical. And the other thing that I think parents forget about and they don't tend to think of is that if there's information and they think, well, maybe the other parent's going to have a reaction or they might not like if I share this information with them, the kids can just tell them, well, who has to deal with the other parent's reaction? Who gets caught dealing with the emotional backlash in that situation? Your kids do, not you.
Yeah.
So, as a parent, wouldn't you want to kind of protect your children, shield them from that? Because it kicks off a really ugly cycle, because then one parent gets really tweaked or very upset, and they, have this emotional reaction. Your kids are left dealing with that. They get exposed to more information. They have to kind of calm that parent down, and then what? Right?
And what about like I'm just thinking off the cuff here, like I'm thinking about my kids. I'm 26 and 30. I'm not divorced, but if I was, um, if I wanted to take my kids on a vacation, I wouldn't tell them they have to. I would ask them, would you want to go on vacation if I planned a vacation? And it would mean, missing this holiday with your dad.
Right.
With your
Yeah.
dad because they're adults. You can't just say, I'm taking you away on vacation like they're 5 years old and they have to go with you. And then at that point, they say, we would love to go away. Say, great, I'll talk to your mom about it, or I'll talk to your dad about it. And that would be the approach. So I would think, yeah, asking them, because it is, you are leaving your children, your adult children, to deal with the reaction and the emotions of their other parent. And that's hard because
Yeah.
I would also venture to say that it's probably difficult for children, no matter what age, to leave another parent alone on any holiday.
Hmm.
That's there could be like a little guilt and discomfort with that.
Well, and worry, right? So, depending on the dynamics
True.
of the breakup, and there may be one parent that is more emotionally vulnerable during that time. And that's a very common dynamic. One
Yeah.
parent's already emotionally left the relationship and distanced themselves, and the other parent is maybe feeling blindsided.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have a great support system, and kids, you know, naturally
Yeah.
want to get in and make it better. They want to make sure their parents are okay. And the truth is that we have to independently, right, make sure that we're plugging into supports, that we're taking care of ourselves so our kids don't step into that role. I think the other thing that you've touched on, which is super, super important, is, and this often just doesn't get addressed, is that when people divorce later in life and they have adult children, they don't think about what their co-parenting relationship is going to look like moving forward. And I think
Because it goes
that
back,
is super critical.
well, because that goes back to the beginning conversation, because we make the wrong assumption that they're adults. We don't need to do that. They don't need us to take care of them anymore. Yeah. And so it all circles back to the number one misconception, when we're talking about divorce, co-parenting, when you have adult children, which is your children are your children no matter what their age,
Right.
and you are
Right.
their parents no matter what your situation is, and you must co-parent together and put the differences aside for the health and wellness of these children that you created together.
Mm-hmm. So, how we support our children's relationship with the other parent is also really, really important. Like that has a huge impact on our kids. And so that's the other thing. Like, are we regarding when we're planning vacations, when we're planning events, are we regarding the other parent? Are we mentioning that to our kids? Are we saying, hey, are we asking, hey, do you already have plans with mom or dad?
Right.
Have you given any thought to, how you want what you want the holiday to look like for you? Okay, let's talk about that and let's talk about what makes sense this year.
Okay.
Because the most important thing to me, right, is that you're not overwhelmed or stressed out, that you don't feel stretched thin, or that you don't feel caught in the middle between myself and your other parent. Like even adult children need to hear that because they often get burdened with all kinds of responsibilities, often feel very caught in the middle, feeling like they have to take a side, they have to pick, they have to choose. And the holidays make that just, again, so much more intense.
So Christina, and this all the conversation is great and the tips are great and it all makes sense. And yet we know that in a lot of cases, there are some really hard, bad feelings and difficult emotions
Mm-hmm.
between those two parents. So I mean, besides calling somebody like yourself and getting the support that you need, but what if you do have one parent who just can't get past, for lack of a better word, their crap or
Mm-hmm.
whatever happened. They can't get past it. They're unwilling to speak to the other parent. They're unwilling to do that co-parenting, putting the children at the top of the list for whatever reason, not because they're bad people, but because,
They're
divorce
hurting.
is hard
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
divorce is hurtful and causes a lot of pain. What do you do? What can the, I don't even know what you do with that. If you're the parent thinking, well, I want to do this, but
Mm-hmm.
the other adult in the room won't talk to me, won't even meet me halfway. What is your suggestion there?
I work with a lot of parents that are in that situation because let's
Do
face it,
will you have like one parent come to you for support? You don't always have
Mhm.
couples, right?
More often than not, I have one parent that
Okay.
comes to me because I tend to deal with those situations that are more complicated where there's mental health issues of a co-parent, they're a
Okay.
high conflict co-parent, they're in it to win it, right? Very
Okay.
contentious. Kids are getting caught in the middle. Um, and they're trying to influence children. So
Okay.
that dynamic is absolutely there. And in those circumstances, I really work with parents on putting their energy in what they can control versus what they can't, right? And the truth is that at any given moment, you only have control over 50% of the equation. And that's how you show up for your kids, how you respond, the choices that you make. And I will tell you that kids will still fare far better if one parent gets it together than if nobody gets it
Yeah.
together, right? Kids need that grounding, stable, nurturing parent. And if you can be that parent, then your kids are going to really value that and appreciate it. Now, they might not verbalize it. They might go, "Hey, mom, thanks for not putting me in the middle and for
Right.
always, being steady and taking that high road." They will value it. They will notice it. And the thing is that when we get mired down in our own anger, in our own strong emotions, kids pick up on that. And so again, they filter. And so if they're feeling conflicted, if something's bothering them, guess what? They are not going to come to you. Is that what you want? Is you want your kids to be able to come to you to ask for advice, for guidance, or at least just tell you how they're feeling? Do you want to know when they're uncomfortable?
Yeah.
well, you're not going to hear it if you don't really set that stage. And so I think it is very important for parents to always remember you get crystal clear, get crystal clear about what your co-parenting values are and operate
Okay.
out of those, right? If you really want to show up for your kids, then get very clear about that.
I-
And you don't base your decisions on what the other parent may or may not do. You base them on how you want to show up for your kids.
You remove that from the equation and get really clear. I love that. Focus on your co-parenting values. How do
Mm-hmm.
I want to look? How do I want to feel in this co-parenting space with respect to my children? How do I want my children to feel? Like that's a really good, that was really good. That was very powerful because it's a good reminder to know that you, no matter how good or how difficult or how challenging the situation is, you really only at the end of the day have control over how you show up, how you think, how you react, how you don't react. It is a choice and it is all yours. So
Absolutely. And I
that
encourage parents to think on this question when they're in that process and they're maybe feeling like they're struggling. Years from now, when your children look back on this time in their lives, what will you have done to make them proud?
that's good. Oh, I just got chills. I got chills. Like I want to cry from that question. Yeah, what would I have done to have made them proud? I love that. I love that. Oh my God, you do such important work. You bring it back to what matters most because we can get, look, you know, that loop,
Yeah.
that circle where your thoughts lead to emotions, which leads to your action and behavior, which lead, and you can go backwards. Your thoughts
Oh, yeah.
leads you to act in a way that doesn't feel good, then your emotions are awful, and then it's a circle, and you break that circle. You stop that circle, and you bring parents back to what matters most, which is we created this family together. And although the
Hmm.
family unit is going to look and feel different, we created these children together or child together. And that's
Yeah.
the most important thing at the end of the day, not losing focus on that. And it is, and look, it's not easy. We're talking late, everybody
Oof.
listen. We know, I know there's somebody out there saying, yeah, well, it's easier said than done, Christina and Jody. And
Yes, it
it is,
is.
I am a child of a divorce. And I've seen a lot of it. I've seen the good. I've seen my parents navigate really well. In hindsight, I look back and I've seen them navigate not so well. And
Mhm.
everything you're saying is resonating with me on a big, big level, Christina. So yes, you can choose to listen to this episode and say, this is hard, this is hard, this is hard. Yes, and I always say,
Mhm.
I learned that the number one tenet of improvisational comedy is yes, and. You could be a yes, but
Oh, yeah.
person, or you could choose to be a yes, and person. And the yes, and parent will be the parent that holds space for their co-parenting values to shine through and support their children, no matter the age, in a really, really impactful way. So that the holidays, what I say at the beginning, so that we can unwrap the gift of harmony in our holidays. Yeah. So I love that. You shared a lot. You shared a lot. You shared about it's about get rid of the fear
Hmm.
and be flexible, which is also a way of saying, you can introduce new traditions by changing the day that you celebrate. Um, I really like to, and focusing on what you can control was a big one too. So what would be your parting words for our audience as we're gonna share this episode. I mean, there's always some holiday coming up somewhere throughout the year. So what would be, out of everything we talked about today, this is a hard one, like the number one.
Mm. Well, before we do, I have something I want to
Yeah,
circle
no,
back
go.
to that you hit on, which I
Okay.
think is really, really important. Like for
Yep,
the
go for it.
listeners out there going, "Oh, this is so hard," right? The other piece of that is there are also parents out there going, oh, like I've already messed up so
Oh,
much,
oh yes.
right? Like, oh, I feel tremendously guilty. I'm listening to this and I'm realizing like I'm having these little aha moments. And so, like, now what?
Oh, that's a good one.
And I want those parents to really hear this. It is never too late to make a better choice. And you can circle back with your kids And when you mess up, you fess up, right? And you can say
Yep.
to them, you know what? I was listening to this podcast and there were some things I just kind of realized some things that had never really occurred to me before. And so here's what I want you to know, right? There's some ways I didn't show up for you in the way that I wanted to. You remember that time? Or when we passed holidays, gosh, I never realized how hard that was for you. And so moving forward, here's my commitment, right? Here's the way I want to show up for you. And I also want you to tell me when you are feeling caught in the middle. I want you to tell me when this isn't landing well for you. So we have an opportunity to reopen those conversations.
I
And
love it.
that's going to mean so much to our kids. And it's also really setting a very important example for
I
our
was going to
kids.
say, you're teaching again. You're telling them it's
Yeah.
okay to realize you didn't do it the right way, and you're recognizing that, admitting
Mhm.
that you notice it, and then offering them, peace. I love that. Thank you for saying it, because you are right. We don't want anyone to listen to this episode and fall into the, oh my God, I'm a horrible parent mode. No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you are not horrible. Divorce is hard, right?
It
Divorce
is.
is hard. And yeah, no, thank you for that, Christina. I'm happy that you did. I'm happy that you shared that. So, okay, so I'm going to rephrase my question then. Not the number one thing, but since we do leave usually every episode with a dare,
Mm.
I have one in mind, but I'm curious, what would you want to dare a listener to for this episode?
So I think I would dare you to hold space for hope, right?
Mhm.
Things might be really hard. It is difficult, challenging. This is not easy. And I think when we choose to show up with intention, right,
Mhm.
we can create that space for hope that our kids can be okay, that we can be okay, that we can really do this differently, right? That we don't have to fall into that trap of thinking that divorce has to be riddled with conflict and that we have to, be at war with our co-parent, that there is opportunity. And so embrace that opportunity, create that space for hope. You can't control the other parent, but you do have a lot of control over yourself.
No, I love that. I love that. Thank you. So hold space for hope. Be gentle with yourself, in other words, right? I love that.
Yes,
Love it.
yes.
Christina, thank you. We will link all the links to your website on how people can find you and work with you and learn from you, because you truly are working in a space that is so needed, and you feel such a need for these parents, because what's the quote on your website? Parenting, a
I
divorce
help
about
good
being a bad
parents get
parent.
through a bad time.
You help good parents get through a bad time, and that's what you do. And there's a lot of good parents that are going through bad times. And
Yeah.
so I appreciate the work you do. And I just wish you had been around years ago. I'm just saying. But no, I appreciate it. This is going to help a lot of people. We would love to hear what your takeaway is if you want to share it with us. If not, we know it's a very personal thing. You can message Christina. How you contact Christina is on our show notes. You can send me a private message. I'll send it on to Christina. We wish you peace and harmony. No matter what time of the year it is for you and your
Mm.
family, it can be peaceful and it can work. It can work. That's it. That's really it.
It can.
All right. So let us know. And don't forget that next week there is another episode of Beyond Empty Nest. We're here to help. We're here to support. And as we always say, dare on. Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Empty Nest. For detailed show notes and more information, be sure to visit jodysilverman.com. Have you heard of the Double Dares? Well, we're a community of moms and midlife women blending virtual and in-person interactions for connection, support, and exciting experiences. From mommy and me classes to soccer sidelines, moms have always found strength in community. And as we navigate the empty nest and other midlife transitions, having that go-to safe space and other women to lean on is a must. Ladies, this is not the chapter to do it alone. Our drama-free group echoes the sentiment of the Cheers theme song, a place where everybody knows your name and our troubles are all the same. If you've been seeking connection and have a desire to figure out who you are and what your purpose is now, then Moms Who Double Dare is the perfect fit for you. Only through the link in our show notes below can you explore and enjoy the first month at half off. Plus, with no contracts, there's zero risk involved. Join us today and get started on your journey of self-discovery, surrounded by new friends who understand and get you. You've sent your kids off to brave new experiences, meet new people, and discover who they get to be. Now, it's your turn. It's your turn to embrace this new adventure. If you're ready to dare on, I'm here to lead the way. Let's embark on this exciting journey together. Click the link below, and as I always say, dare on.